welcome back to another episode of the Baseball Talk Radio Show. I'm Gary Mack, and I'm joined, as always, by the man in black. And no, it's not Johnny Cash. It's the great Rich Baxter. Mr. Baxter, how are you?
Good morning. Good morning. Good afternoon, Gary Mack. Doing great. Yep. It's not Johnny Cash over here, but the man in black is correct. On this first podcast after the World Series that we're doing on baseball. And I'll tell you, what a run it was. What a baseball season it was. And I'm itching to hear your comments about the World Series.
Well, it was an interesting World Series. I do think the better team won. I had predicted that the Astros would win, but I was quite surprised by the Philadelphia Phillies. And look, they gave a good account of themselves. I just think their magic or ran out. And I got to be honest, I think in Game 6, was that the Wheeler game? Did he start? Yes, he started Game 6.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think the mistake that Rob Thompson, and I think it cost them the World Series, was pulling Wheeler when he got in trouble in that inning. He had a lead. They had two men on, yes. But, a guy of Wheeler's experience and capabilities, you leave him in there and let him pitch out of the jam. He brought in the relief pitching. The bullpen was great in the playoffs, but it was shaky all year. So, and of course, right away, I think it was Alvarado gave up the 2-run homer, and the Astros never looked back after that. But I really think that was the big mistake of the World Series, was pulling Wheeler in that inning. And I've talked to other people, and they seem to agree that they thought he should have never came out of that game. But it is what it is, and they had a terrific season, and they just came up 2 games short. And I think we see, you get exposed after a while, and their defense really isn't that great. The Phillies, that is, but they're hitting. They hit so well that they overshadowed that.
That's what Keith Hernandez said earlier in the season, of course. Then he backpedaled. There was a press story coming out where Keith Hernandez said, "Oh, it wasn't. They did a good job in correcting it.
Yeah,
a little bit of egg on the face of Hernandez, though. But yeah, it was a Cinderella year for the Phillies, and the crown would have been if they would have been able to pull off the World Series victory. And as you said, that was a serious error on the part of the manager, Rob Thompson, to come out and pull Wheeler. It was sort of like a knee-jerk reaction, I think. Here's my star ace. He's getting in trouble. Let me go out and help him. And had Alvarado been able to strike out Alvarez, we would have been talking about something else today, maybe.
Right.
He didn't do it. He threw a fastball right down Broadway, and it was deposited in the stands and forever changed the tide of the World Series. But the Phillies' offense struggled mightily after the second game.
Right.
Of the World Series. They just couldn't get it together. They couldn't find it. They had men on base, plenty of runners on base, but they just couldn't find that combination to bring them home. But it was an entertaining World Series. The Astros winning their second World Series title, both in the last 6 seasons. The last time they did it was 2017, believe it or not. And the first team to clinch the World Series in their home ballpark since the 2013 Red Sox, believe it or not, snapping the longest streak of road clinches in World Series history. So that's a little bit of World Series trivia for our listeners out there. But the other great thing about the World Series and playoff games like that is you never know what you're going to see at these games, and there's always firsts, there's always records being broken. And that's the great thing about baseball. It's never, gathering moss, so to speak. It's always
Yeah.
establishing new records.
The only thing I don't like about what they did now is that's a cord from my headphone. Uh, uh what I don't like is that they combine all of the postseason statistics together. Years ago you used to, because you just had the World Series. Um and you used to have the World Series records, and now they combine them all in, and it kind of pushes a lot of those old timers and just shoved them down the list. But I don't think that's fair because they didn't play in as many postseason games. I think Reggie Jackson has the most home runs in a postseason. But
Hmm.
Mickey Mantle still has the record, I believe, for the most in a World Series. But his numbers look uh, pitiful almost because there's so many more games, and eventually you're gonna push some of these guys down. And I don't think that's good. I think it was better to have separate, you know, records and things like that, just for the history of the game. But it was a totally enjoyable playoff. I think it went off very smoothly. It was one of the best. I liked the wild card format with the 3 games, even though it didn't work well for my Mets. But
Right.
I do like it. I think it gives a team a chance. Um, Even if you have to play in the other team's field, that's the perk for winning, is for having more wins, and I don't see anything wrong with that. And I kind of like that. uh, um and I like the no travel days for that. So I think if they're going to keep this format, which I can live with, I didn't mind it at all. They moved it along. We had a couple of rainouts there, but they moved it along swiftly. The series were interesting. I think I said this the last podcast. The only thing was uh, the conglomeration, or not the conglomeration. It's the wrong word, but uh, the amount of TV stations and trying to figure out where a game is. It was. I know it sounds
During
stupid, but
during the playoffs, but not
during the
the
playoffs,
World
yes.
Series. Yeah.
Oh yeah, the World Series is just one. But early on, when you had 4 5 games going on with 3 team or whatever it was, um, the 2 division series going. What was it on? It was on this one. It was on that one, and
FS1,
it was on
Fox,
TBS. It was on
TBS.
FS1. It was on TBS. It's just, I think it's a little bit too much.
Yeah.
But other than that, I thought it was a good year for baseball. I thought the World Series had enough. It had enough action. It had some, terrific plays. Um, it had some good pitching, some bad pitching. It had some bad defense. I mean, there was a couple of innings there. I think there was one inning where the Phillies blew a couple of plays, and then the Astros blew, who have a pretty good defensive team. They blew a couple of plays. So that could be pressure. That could be a lot of things. But I thought overall it was a good World Series.
Yeah. World Series MVP, of course, was Jeremy Pena. He hit 400, 10 for 25 with 2 doubles, a home run, and 3 RBIs in the World Series. George Springer, which was the last Astros player to win the World Series MVP back in 2017, he joins him there, and he became the third rookie to win the World Series MVP overall following the last time this happened was Levon Hernandez for the Miami Marlins or the Florida
Yeah.
Marlins back then, 1997. So that goes
Wow.
back a ways. And of course, Dusty Baker got his first World Series victory as a manager and his third appearance in the Fall Classic. So we had some firsts there. Framber Valdez was phenomenal for the Houston Astros. He went 2-0 with a 1.46 ERA with 18 strikeouts in 2 games starts in the World Series. So big reason why the Phillies lost there. Framber Valdez, they could not solve him. But like I said, I was not mad. I was not upset. I was happy, actually, that the Phillies made it to the World Series. And win, lose, or draw, I was going to be happy at the end of it. And what the heck? I'm happy about it, you know?
Yeah.
Stoked for the
Yeah.
23 season as well. One of these things, and I think I said this in the last show, that draws players to want to be on certain teams is being in the World Series. You get a lot of interest from top rated players. They want to jump on that bandwagon. They want to ring. So the Phillies have some interesting developments. I'm sure the Mets do as well, as far as,
Yeah.
free agents. And why don't we talk a little Mets? Who'd they sign already? I heard they signed your Diaz.
Yes, they went out and they signed Edwin Diaz, which was a very good move because, uh, it was a key spot and one of the top 3 guys that they had to sign or that they felt they wanted to sign, and they got it done. He's got a record breaking deal for a closer, 5 years, 102 million. But in the long run, it really wasn't that bad a deal. He's averaging about 20 million a year for a top flight closer. It's a little they overpaid a little bit, but you know what? They had to get it done, and they did get it done first. And I think they're showing that they, you know, I mean business. On the hand, Jeff McNeil won the NL Silver Slugger Award for second base, so that's a big thing. He also won the batting title, so they should be looking to extend him. The number of guys, including Jacob DeGrom, have opted out of their contracts for next year and turned down the qualifying offer. And somebody said, why would the Mets offer after DeGrom opted out of a $32.5 million contract? Why would you offer him a qualifying offer at 19 and 3/4 or whatever it is? And one of the reasons we're talking about DeGrom is that now they get, if somebody else signs him, they get a draft pick. So, um, it's a good business move there. But yes, they signed Diaz, picked up an option on Vogelbach, so he'll be there as well. And they're looking at other free agents and stuff now, as are the Phillies.
Yeah, yeah. 5-year deal for Diaz, and that's a double-edged sword sometimes with a reliever. But if they don't stay as the closer, you do have him for the 5 years. So
Right.
he could always,
Nice.
go into a different role with the Mets if things change down the line. Of course, that is a long-term deal for Diaz. Great for him.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
nice money. It's not above and beyond what I thought they were going to pay him, at least. And, I hope the Phillies can find somebody too, because they're going to need someone. They've been piecing together a bullpen for the last couple seasons. It's one of the reasons why they didn't win the NL East. They had 87 wins during the season, but just a few more games of that bullpen being better in the early on first 2 months, there would have been a 96, 97 win season possibly. But, like I said, I'm looking forward to 23. There's a ton of free agents out there on the market. Um, the Phils supposedly interested in Turner, Trey Turner from the Dodgers. They're interested in Alexander Bogarts from the Red Sox as well. And I'm sure the Mets are probably interested in those two players as well. So
Yeah,
Dansby Swanson out there, Carlos Correa out there, a ton of free agents this year.
yeah. Well, the rumor is that the Phillies are definitely going to go be looking for a shortstop. Even though the young guy did a good job the last month of the season, but I think they want a big name in there. And I was reading today, MLB uh, crack staff of people that they put together a panel and they vote on who they think is going to go where. They're picking the Phillies to get to Trey Turner, so that would be interesting. He is good friends with Harper and wants to play with him again. So, if the money's right, I guess there's a good chance that Trey Turner will be a Philly, and he wants to come back to the East Coast. And I mean, he could end up with the Mets, but the Mets really don't need a shortstop. So if he wants to play shortstop, coming to the Mets, he'll probably play second base if he came. But yeah, the Mets are looking at Andrew Heaney and a couple of the other Carlos Rodon top pitchers. Uh, the experts seem to think that they're going to lose the Grom, and he'll go to Texas. And um, you know, I can't see paying him a lot more than he was making. He was making 32. He would have got 32.5 million this year. But he's been injured a lot the last 2 years. So do you want to give him another 3-year contract at 40 million plus? I
No.
don't know. I don't take the chance. Personally, I think they need a bat. I think the World Series showed us that they kept pulling these pitches out at 5, 6 innings anyway. So if you can get a competent pitcher that can go 5 or 6 solid innings, um, they have a Scherzer to be their stopper.
Mm-hmm.
So, you just got to get somebody else in there. I mean, it's just starting pitching doesn't seem to be that important anymore in the game. And I would concentrate more on the bullpen and the offense. But we'll see. There's a lot of teams. Personally, I'd love to see him go get Judge the Mets, but I really think Aaron Judge is going to stay with the Yankees in the long run. Um, so many guys, as you said, though, Swanson and Correa opted out of his contract. A lot of shortstops, a lot of good shortstops out there, Turner. So we'll see how it's all going to shake out. It is going to be an interesting time.
Yeah. Turner and Dansby Swanson, I believe, are both like around the same age, 29
Yeah.
to 30. They're in the prime of their careers. I wouldn't mind either one of them. I was tweeting out on my Fighting Phillies Twitter handle that, Swanson is actually a very good player all around. But,
Mhm.
of course, I heard from the Turner fans, they overshadowed that and said Turner's much better. So, I just face Swanson so much with the Phillies, and I'm sure you do as a Met. He kills the Phillies, so I'd like him
Well,
to be on the Phillies.
yeah, I agree. And same thing with Turner. Turner kills the Mets.
Yeah.
And Swanson was killing the Mets. So I hope Swanson goes to the American League. Uh Turner, I hope he don't go to the Phillies because
Yeah.
he's a killer to the Mets. And but like it says, it is what it is. You got to play the games, and you go out there and you play. Um, it's gonna be a good. It's gonna be an interesting winter for us personally. I think because both of our teams had decent years. Those you guys made the World Series. We didn't. We still had a good season. Um, but the playoffs exposed a lot of our weaknesses, and the World Series exposed some of the weaknesses of the Phillies. So
And
Uh,
going on that theme, I think once the playoff starts, you have to have all teams on an equal footing. And it's just the team that's playing the best at that particular point in time that's going to keep on going, in my opinion. The Phillies, didn't necessarily wrap up their regular season as a powerhouse. They limped into the playoffs, to be honest with you. They were
yeah,
not doing well at all. But then when the playoffs came, the talk from Rob Thompson to the players, hey, we need 12 wins, guys, and we're going to be World Series winners or whatever it was at the time,
yeah.
16 games, whatever. But he had that talk with them in the clubhouse, and it was like, hey, this is doable, and they just happened to fire off at the right time in the playoffs. So the Yankees blew it. The Dodgers blew it. The Mets didn't do well. A lot of powerhouse teams that had great seasons didn't do well in the playoff time. And that's key. You have to just be there and be ready to excel during the playoffs. And that's what the Phillies did. That's how they made it into the World Series.
Yeah, and you have to wonder whether or not the bye uh hurt the Dodgers, because the Padres kept playing. They beat the Mets,
Yeah.
of course, and then they went in and they beat the Dodgers, and and did the bye hurt Atlanta?
Yeah.
Because Atlanta was red hot at the end of the year,
I think
and then
I think
by
it
the time the Phillies,
throws a bucket of water on a team that by
it
5 days
could,
or 4 days. You
yeah.
get a tremendous amount of rust, so to speak, and a team that's playing hot has already cooled down.
But give the Phillies credit. I mean, they beat two division winners too. I mean, it wasn't like they had, I heard some people say, yeah, well, the Padres knocked off the Dodgers, so it made it easier. Well, yeah, that's okay, but they had to beat the Cardinals, who won their division, and they beat Atlanta, who won the Eastern Division. So, you know, you can't discredit that at all. They did what they had. They can't help it that the Padres. I mean, I'm sure that they're glad the Padres beat the Dodgers. They were much happier, I'm sure, to face the Padres than the Dodgers in that championship series. But it's not the Phillies' fault. They played and beat whoever was in front of them. And as you said, they just kind of ran out of gas, or their luck
Yeah.
ran out, or whatever you want to say. But you know what? I don't care if people say you're lucky. You need luck to get that far.
Yeah,
You
and
have to have
certain
luck.
breaks, certain
Yes.
breaks.
Yes.
The Phillies had the luck. Game 6, I was disappointed with what I saw from the Phillies. The called third strikes were driving me crazy. Of course, I
Yeah.
wasn't upset in the end, but just the game cadence. It was like, hey, this is game 6, guys. You have to win. Your back's up against the wall. Never watch a third strike. I don't care if you swing and look like Castellanos every time, but they
Yeah.
were taking that third strike. They had 71 strikeouts during the World Series. They set a new record. 71 times they struck out. And that 6th game, I haven't done the research on how many strikeouts they had, but I could count 5 watched called third strikes, and that's a pet peeve of mine. Don't watch a called third strike. Bunt if you have to. Break your bat. Do whatever you have to do, but don't watch a third called strike. The guy's throwing them right down the middle.
Put the ball in play.
Exactly. Put the bat on the ball. Don't stand there with the bat up in your and watch a ball come in. You can tell a strike. I mean, these guys are professionals. I don't know what they were looking at. It was almost like we give up. We wave a white flag. We're done.
Yeah.
That's what it looked like to me. And I have to rewatch that game. But during the game, I was like a little bit perturbed with that.
Well, I think, that's the big perturbedness, if that's a word, that we've both had for a number of years. And that's that they, when, especially when they said that the strikeouts don't matter. Of course they do. If
Yeah.
you put the ball in play, and they proved that in the series. There was a easy ground ball that I wanted. I think the third baseman.
Reese Hoskins, maybe.
Yeah, Hoskins dropped the ball
At
on a
first.
throw.
Yeah.
If that guy struck out, they wouldn't have been that
It would have been
throw.
out of the inning.
It it's just the stupidest thing for anybody to say that the strikeouts don't matter. It's much better to put the ball in play because you don't know what will happen.
Yeah.
And contact is important, but I think the game is evolving back to that.
Yeah.
I think that the analytics of it, I think they're kind of working in more analytics, but pushing out some of the most extreme things like that as we go along. And by the way, um, we talked a little about the Mets signing Diaz. The Astros just signed Rafael Montero, their relief pitcher, and to a 3-year deal, and the Padres signed Robert Suarez, one of their relief pitchers, to its. I don't know how long his deal is, but so it seems like the first signings are bullpen help. So that's an interesting thing to look at.
Yeah, for sure. 5-year deal there, $46 million, as I'm reading it here, guaranteed, allows them to opt out. A lot of these players, as you said earlier, are having these opt out type of clauses put into their contract. He can opt out after 25 seasons. So if he does well, just like DeGrom, but I share your opinion with DeGrom, to get back to that. You'd have to be crazy to be an MLB team and pay him $40 million a year for 3 years. I mean, you really would. At his age, I can't believe he opted out of his contract. That's a little, to me, that's a little strange. But 30 and $32.5 million, I think he passed on.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it'll backfire on him, but I don't see too many teams rushing out to clamor over him.
Well, there probably will be one that's going to take the chance, um, just because that they need pitching, and it's kind of shame in a way because he probably, when he's healthy, he's probably the best pitcher in baseball. But these past 2 seasons, he struggled with his health, and uh, it just that's the only reason. Look, I would pay him the 40 million had he had complete seasons. But
Mhm.
and 2 years in a row he missed a lot of time. So I can't. If he leaves, I'm not going to be heartbroken over it. Because I don't. First off, I think it's kind of a like you said. I think with the opting out of his contract, I think that's kind of a little rude in a way. Yes, he has the clause, but after not playing or playing very little for the last 2 years and then to opt out of a contract,
Yeah.
I mean, I can understand
And it's not
somebody.
chicken feed he's opting out of.
No, I mean, I could see like a Verlander if he opted out. Well, he only had a 1-year deal he came back on, but with the year he had, you could see him opting out of a contract or something. Somebody with a big year. But to have not the season, to miss half of the season, and then the struggle in the playoffs, you know, um, not a good sign. It kind of turned me off a little bit, to be honest with you.
Now
But
to get over to another pitcher that the Mets have real quick. Very surprised that the Mets didn't make the qualifying offer for Taijuan Walker, because I thought he was a beast. Watching from a Phillies fan perspective about the Mets, I I never wanted to face Taiwan Walker.
Well, I think going in that direction, I think he made 6 million this year. They didn't think he was a $20 million a year pitcher. That's what that all comes down to. I think they figured he was maybe a $10 million a year, uh, after the years that he had. So uh he declined a $7.5 million option. Maybe he did that thinking that they would give him a qualifying offer, but I don't think I believe that they felt that if they offered him the qualifying offer, he would take it. And I don't think they think he's worth that kind of money.
Yeah.
Like I said, maybe 10 million bucks a year, or 3 years for 31 million, 32, something like that, but not 19. And that's really the reason I think they turned it down, or they didn't offer it. Now they did take the option on Carlos Carrasco, who had a very good year, but wasn't dominating. But he had a good year for the Mets. $14 million option, but it really only worked out to 11 million because they had a $3 million buyout. So it was worth it for them to pick him up. Um, and I think he approved the or he didn't have it was a team option. I'm sorry. So he'll be back. So is that, but there's a lot of mechanics involved, that go beyond what we think is right or wrong, or what they're gonna do. But now we're in the silly season, though, Rich. We've got all the awards going on, and we had the Gold Glove. I think is it this week we're gonna have the Manager of the Year awards
Yeah.
announced, and I see the Phillies had the Real Muto's having a good postseason so far.
Yeah. Yeah. He's collected a few, a Silver Slugger, a Gold Glove. And
Yeah.
as you said, yeah, there's all kinds of awards coming up this week here. Going to be announced on MLB Network, usually about 6 p.m. Eastern. So if you're available to check that out live, you can see the NL Most Valuable Player and the AL. November 17th will be announced live. And over the Cy Youngs will be announced live on the MLB Network at 6 p.m. November 16th. Both the American League and the National League. Rookie of the Year will be on November 14th, 6 p.m. Again, all time 6 p.m. Manager of the Year will be the 15th, right there on MLB Network. So, yeah, a lot of top awards coming up. We've seen a couple already. Hank Aaron Award winner, Paul Goldschmidt. Pretty cool there. And Aaron Judge picked up the AL version of the Hank Aaron Award. And Justin Turner, a guy that the Dodgers just released or didn't re-sign, named the winner, of course, of the Roberto Clemente Award. So love those award seasons, Gary. And now with the Phillies being in World Series, the shortened off season for us, it's going to seem like a sprint to the start of 23.
Yeah. That's what happens. And we should see we should see a lot of action starting up I guess soon.
Yeah.
We just had the general managers meetings. They wrapped up, and people start laying the groundwork for it, and
For the
then
next season. Yeah.
we'll have the baseball meetings. I'm not sure what the date is. Trying to look it up.
Usually have all these dates here. But yeah, there's a ton of off-season business that the MLB goes through. Executive year awards for them, baseball writers awards finalists, all kinds of awards, silver sluggers, of course, we heard about those. And rookie of the year will be Monday from the baseball writers, announced on MLB Network again, 6 p.m., Monday, November 14th. So, yeah, a ton of announcements this coming week. If you're listening to our show, and this isn't 6 months old by the time you're listening, you'll hear all these great awards, and we'll bring them all to you on our next program. And Gary, I don't know if you know it or not, but Baseball Talk Radio's got its 24-hour-a-day, 7-day feed, the radio feed now back live, streaming across the world and the country, of course, for all the listeners.
So you can listen at any time.
Yep. You can jump on.
Right on there. Wow, that's terrific.
And I'm still tweaking it. You know, in the 2 years, 3 years have gone by that I hadn't had the live stream. My skills of coding have eroded a little bit. And I was trying to go to the memory banks a little bit on how I did certain things and stream things and, you know, HTML5, and anybody that does coding, everything changes a little bit over the years. So still a work in progress, but I do have it up. Tinker with it a little bit and you'll get it to play. But yeah, that's back.
And that's terrific. And just in time for the off season, right?
Yeah. I was trying to get it for the World Series, but it just, all the circumstance of the Phillies being in the World Series, I was too busy to get it done. But,
well, you got a little preoccupied there.
Yeah. Little things to watch and do. But stay with us all off season. We got a ton of stuff we're planning to do here on the podcast, on the Baseball Talk Radio Show. We have the YouTube channel. Check that out. And we're going to have our own handle on that because YouTube's going to personalize handles. Twitter, we're on Twitter as well. So check it out. Hit the like and subscribe button if you're on YouTube. Share it with your friends. And if you listen to our audio podcast, remember to hit subscribe on that so you get all of our shows. And send us an email. If you have some things you want to talk about with us, you can send it to Gary at baseballtalkradio.com or myself, Rich, at baseballtalkradio.com. We'll be glad to mention it on a show or get back to you. So great show, Gary. So happy here in the baseball off season, and every day is a new day.
And I think it's going to be a busy off season. I don't think it's going to be a quiet one. So hopefully we'll have a lot to talk about as we move on through the long, cold, dank winter months.
Which hasn't been so bad already, but
which hasn't,
still fall.
I'm still wearing shorts, so I'm okay. Though a little chilly at night, but you know, that's okay. But yeah, it should be an interesting year to see what holes every team, including our own teams, fill and can get done. And baseball meetings, I think, are December 4th to the 7th, I saw. So that'll be a big thing too. That's when some action takes place. So we'll just sit back and relax and wait and see what happens.
Yes, we will. And we'll bring you the award winners next podcast, and we'll talk some more hot stove baseball. I'm sure everyone have a great baseball off season. Don't forget, we're going all year round, so stop in and listen. And Gary, you have a great week as well.
And you do too. And we'll see you next time.